Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and good afternoon to you.
You too.
Thank you for your comments. I appreciate fully the number one priority of serious violence in London, but of course it is a blessing that many Londoners do not experience serious violence, but they experience what I prefer to call is neighbourhood crimes, burglary, robbery and vehicle crimes. There's recently been a report by HMIC FRS about sanction detections, and I'd like your comments on these figures for London. This is sanction detections. If you have a vehicle damage or crime against you, you have a 1 in 100 chance of that being taken to court. If indeed you're burgled in London, it's something like 1 in 20. And if you have the misfortune of being robbed in London, you have something like a 1 in 30 chance, 30, of that crime being fully investigated and taken to court, and you give them satisfaction. What do you think about those figures, Mr. Mayor?
Those figures aren't good enough, and the sanction rates on those volume crimes need to be higher. I think the police get that. That's not explaining it is one thing, excusing it something else. So I can explain it, but that's no excuse. So you'll be aware of the explanation in relation to the few police officers they've got a triage. That has an impact on these sanction detection rates. We're now increasing police officer numbers thanks to contributions from City Hall. The government's now said that help over the next couple of years. So we should expect to see an improvement in relation to those detection rates.
Okay, now I've spoken to you about confidence in the police, and that's been the theme of today's meeting up to now, which I fully support. When you took office, confidence in the Met Police was around about 68, 69%. The latest figures I have is dropped by 10%. So the confidence across London, and we're talking about the neighbourhoods, is dropping, and that has a direct link with perhaps the crimes that you will experience. So what are your thoughts around the effect on confidence with Londoners, that the fact that their crimes aren't being solved?
I think actually, if you look at the figures, and I've seen the most recent ones, the big dip comes after George Floyd's brutal killing, actually, in relation to confidence in our police. I think a point Susan Hall made was people are extrapolating experience of American police forces on our police service, which I think is unfair. So the big dip you saw in confidence of Londoners happened actually quite recently. But you're right, in general terms, confidence has been going down, not the dip we've seen recently. One of the reasons why it's going down is people see fewer officers. Why do they see fewer officers? Because there are fewer officers over the last few years, and that leads to fewer officers being able to investigate fewer crimes, and there being less detection rates. It's a vicious circle. I'm really pleased. The government's finally accepted the point that cuts are consequences. One of the reasons why violent crime has gone up is fewer police officers. One of the reasons why sanction detection rates has gone down is fewer police officers. We're investing from City Hall record sums in policing. And we now have 32,400 police officers, there or thereabouts. So I'm hoping to see both an improvement in detection rates, a reduction in violent crime, but also increased confidence from Londoners.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I mean, keeping Londoners safe, I believe, and I think you believe, is your number one priority. When you took over 4 years ago, you scrapped the volume crime priorities under MOPAC, which is a fair thing to do, perhaps, and shifted that emphasis to serious violent crime and others. The unfortunate fact of the matter, Mr. Mayor, is that after four years, serious violence, homicide rates are at all-time high, and equally, the volume crime and sanction detections are still an issue. So basically, Londoners will judge perhaps that you failed on both of those sections of crime, Mr. Mayor. I'm sure you wouldn't agree with me, but what would your comment be to that?
Well, you've always been a fair bloke, and I think if you were being fair, would accept that both volume crime and violent crime started going in 2014, not 2016. It's quite convenient for people in your party to assume that crime only began going up on May the 8th, 2016. Not true. And you'll also be aware that one of the unintended consequences of MOPAC 7 was serious crime was neglected. That was one of the conclusions of the HMIC report in relation to child protection issues. So we're trying to have a blend of both high volume crime, which can be addressed by the local priorities that boroughs have, but also the pan-London's issues of priority to serious crime. So that's seen, for example, in those boroughs that have as their local crime priorities burglary or vehicle-related crime, those going down. And across London, you've seen pre-COVID, for example, violent crime, knife crime, those affected under 25 going down, which shows the progress we're making with limited help from central government, plus from City Hall investing in violent crime task force, us investing in violence reduction unit, us investing in Young Others Fund, which are starting to pay dividends.
Yeah, I understand, and just finally, and I understand fully the issue and the priority of violent crime, but I would ask you very much to keep some prioritising on neighbourhood crimes, and particularly this appalling level of sanction detections. Thank you very much, Chair. That's enough for me.